So we've learned a lot. We've seen a few different things, and now we're going to take a step in, again, a slightly different direction. So how many of you use VPNs? How many of you are familiar with VPNs? Do you have a VPN running on your phone? Do you think it's good enough? Do you think it's actually providing you with the level of security that you need? Well, a lot of hands just disappeared. All of the hands disappeared. Interesting. So the next folks on stage know a lot about security. Each of them has an individual story to tell, but what they'd like to talk about today is the concept of mixed networks. So please welcome to the stage Chelsea Manning and Harry Halpin from NIM and Robert Schifrin, an InfoSec consultant.
Good afternoon. Are we on? I think we're on. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. Thank you so many people for coming. I think we're getting towards the end of the year, and in the UK, where I'm from, before I moved to Portugal, a lot of the publishers of dictionaries towards the end of the year tend to publish their word of the year, which I think last year was probably woke. I don't know what it's going to be this year, but my word of the year is probably, or my word even of the 2020s so far, is probably disrupt, because so many companies say, right, what do we want to do? We want to disrupt something. What do we want to disrupt? Don't really know, but as long as we can make some money out of it, then let's go and disrupt something. And I have with me two guys who want to, who are planning to disrupt the VPN market. Harry and Chelsea from NIM Technologies. I missed the opening session a few seconds ago when somebody asked how many people use VPNs. How many people use VPNs here? Okay, a good 50%. And how many people use VPNs because they want to, not because the employer says you have to? About less than half of those, okay. It's one of those necessary evils, isn't it, I suppose? And the market's in a bit of a mess at the minute. It has been for a number of years. When you talk about VPNs, you talk about one of the commercial providers who say, you know, subscribe to us for $3 a month. We promise we don't keep logs. Or are we talking about the stuff in your server rack in the office that means you can work securely and encryptedly, that's a good word, from home? Where is the VPN market now? What's wrong with it? Harry, Chelsea.
Do you want to take it, or I'll take it? Okay, so the main problem with the VPN market today is it appears to be many different companies. For example, ExpressVPN, Private Internet Access, Surfshark, TunnelBear, so forth and so on. However, actually, there's only one or two large, well, two or three, let's say, large VPN companies actually run most user-facing VPNs. This is quite dangerous, and these VPNs are centralized. So instead of trusting someone, you're not really making your connection private in any meaningful sense. You're just trusting some other company with all of your network data, everything that you're doing on the internet, they can see. And that's quite dangerous because at least some of these companies, I'll call out Cape Technologies in general, used to be known for malware, and essentially other companies are selling your data, so you think you're being private and secure, but actually you're giving it to a giant honeypot that has your credit card information, and then they in turn are selling that data and reselling your data. Anything to add there?
What do people see a VPN as being for? Being an expat, being an immigrant, I'm British, but I now live in Portugal. All I ever hear about from VPNs is they are designed to let me watch the BBC, even though I live in Portugal. But if I worked for a bank and I was using my corporate VPN from a coffee shop, that's a totally different market. There's a lot of confusion, isn't there, Chelsea?
There is. And what you're describing is actually falls under the umbrella term of censorship resistance. there are obviously various degrees of how far you go with censorship resistance. Obviously, you know, I don't think the BBC is trying to keep Americans from watching like television shows.
It's because of licensing. They
it
only
is
sign
because
up
of
the rights
licensing.
for certain countries.
But some countries do try to prevent you from accessing. China tries to prevent certain countries from accessing different types of information. Iran does the same, and very likely the United States is going to in the near future as well. So, so as the splinter net sort of becomes worse and worse, many people turn to VPNs to be able to access their information, information that they otherwise wouldn't normally get. This has mostly been the kind of banal information, like you know, downloading videos or watching streams of particular things. But the censorship resistance is, I think, the largest market share of people who use VPNs, and I think that is it's definitely becoming a more prickly problem as VPNs have become this massive industry, and countries have had the ability to develop relationships with VPNs and find out who's using them, when they're using them, and etc.
And is speed a problem? I know if you speak to people and say, have you thought about using a VPN? Sometimes they say, I wouldn't use that because it will slow down my computer hugely. Can it be an issue?
I think VPNs have a reputation of being slower, but even though I think that modern ones don't necessarily have that issue anymore, they're certainly more secure. VPNs can be slightly more secure at the cost of speed, and I think that is a worthy thing. But I don't think that the VPNs that are fast are as secure as ones that are that use more encryption tools. And that's essentially what NIM is. It is an effort to address this problem where, okay, you can download this video at a very fast speed, but every single step in the internet and that process for that connection can see what's going on, even though they can't see because it's an encrypted connection. They can't see the contents. They can see the relationship. They can piece together the metadata, and AI has made it even easier to be able to do that disentangling.
Because NIM is launching a VPN, aren't you? And I tried the alpha or the beta the other day, and I did notice the first thing it said to me when I installed the app, are you more concerned about speed or privacy? Obviously, you want privacy, but do you want government 256-bit ultra-secure privacy, or do you just want the BBC not to know where you're watching the latest edition of EastEnders from?
Yeah,
and you seem to be doing that, which no one's done before, which I thought was a great idea.
Yeah, so, I mean, again, like a lot of people think that they're getting some kind of security or privacy from their VPN. And again, I mean, I mentioned the problems with consumer-facing VPNs earlier. Corporate and government VPNs are quite problematic as well. So, for example, we know that the U.S. government backdoored, for example, a lot of Cisco products. And then other governments, like the Chinese and cyber criminals, would then discover these backdoors and abuse these. So we said, well, a few years ago, I worked for the French government after Snowden, and they said, can we make a VPN that even the NSA can't crack? And we designed this. Of course, no one uses it because that's how Europe and innovation work. But then we decided we're going to do a startup to really kind of push it out. And so we've produced the world's most private and most world's slowest VPN. And if you look at a little graphic, what happens is that a traditional VPN just sends your traffic to someone else's computer and then pushes that out. And something like Tor maybe sends it to a bunch of different computers. But what we do is we take your traffic and we encrypt kind of each packet separately and send each packet through a different network of computers. Each route is separate. When they're going through these routes, they're mixed with your packets and other people's packets, so the packets come in a different order, then they arrive in a different order than they've sent. And then we add noise, entropy, let's say. We add fake traffic to that traffic. I think they're the only VPN that does that, and it's also decentralized, so there's no single server that controls, or even single company that controls the VPN, and any payments are unlinkable. That's all quite new tech, and it does make things slower. So you kind of know it's working because it's slower, because that process naturally is more encryption. But we discovered that some people, they just want to watch the BBC. They're not necessarily Chelsea Manning. So people who are in a high security, high privacy situation, they can click an anonymous button and get that extra level of protection that's more than a VPN. But people that just want to, stream cat videos, you can do that relatively fast through clicking the fast button. And that's kind of our innovation, for better or for worse.
And you can flip between the two as you go? Or?
Yes, you can flip between the two. Eventually, in the version that will hopefully come out before the Trump inauguration, we'll allow people to have different apps use different channels. So things that are very secure, but maybe not that require that much speed, like email or instant messaging. WhatsApp Signal can use the slow channel, and stuff like video streaming can use the fast channel.
So maybe the other VPN companies are going to start slowing down their systems so they can say, oh, we're running really slowly. we must be very secure now.
But actually, they do the reverse right now. So one thing you don't know, so we discovered this because we were testing our speed, and we said, wow, we're not as fast as other VPN companies. But then we discovered that every single other VPN company actually fakes their speed. So when you go to speed test, it's really, really fast. They'll be super fast. But if you leave it on for 30 minutes, it drops down because they know that when you do the speed test, you're going to just look at the results and that's it. So they've actually developed a whole way to fool reporters and consumers into thinking they're super fast, but over time they slow you down. And actually we discovered the longer, for most VPN companies, it's so scammy, the longer you subscribe, the more they slow you down. So the first month they'll be kind of fast, and month 2 or 3 they'll start throttling you a bit.
I remember many years ago I was reviewing some software for a magazine that was a password cracker for some of the major word processors if you've saved your file, your document with a password. And this particular program that cost about $200 would crack your password, and the progress bar would go along the screen very slowly, and it would take about 2.5 minutes to crack your password, very evenly along the screen, which made me suspicious. So I spoke to them, and it turns out that they actually cracked the password in about half a second, but no one would pay $200 for a program that takes half a second to run. But if they watch it doing what they think is a lot of work that's worth $200, then they would pay for it, which I found rather interesting. So maybe speed is going to become an issue in communications in a way that we hadn't imagined. If you're saying that your aim is to produce an NSA-proof VPN, have the NSA spoken to you about that?
I mean, not to me, no.
Are you concerned?
No, I'm not aware. I'm not aware of that. I'm sure that they're interested. We've certainly had enterprise-level interest in sort of what we're doing, I think, and I'm sure that some other state actors have had an interest in what we're doing.
I mean, we're based in Switzerland, and the Swiss Secret Service did contact me once just to ask if I was okay and safe, because they noticed that they thought other state actors might be looking at our product. In terms of the United States is aware that VPNs, even Tor, are increasingly easy for other nation states to defeat.
Well, that was what attracted me to thinking of this in 2016 in particular.
Yeah, that's actually a cool story. So the reason we ended up working with Chelsea is because Chelsea independently more or less thought of the same concept while in jail, which is pretty unusual.
Yeah, I wrote it. I was with a colleague who works at Brave, actually. She came to visit me, and we mapped out what we wanted to do was we wanted to upgrade Tor as a project, and then that would augment Secure Drop, which is an effort to allow journalists to obtain information. Because I kind of saw that the computational cost, there was a rapid drop-off in the computational cost for disentangling and doing traffic analysis on packets for these kinds of very high-risk communications. And we knew that even then that thinking into the 2020s and the 2030s, we were going to have to innovate and develop a mixed net, add decoy traffic, as it's called, the noise, into the network. And so I sort of hashed this out, and Harry worked with Claudia Diaz, who's an economist, who's an economist on sort of computation and not just the basics of this, but in terms of security versus access. and the reward system, and came up with a reward system which I never would have thought of.
I just want to mention, one thing back to the U.S. government point, because I forgot. So the U.S. government realized that normal VPNs, even Tor, were going to be increasingly easy targets to be attacked, particularly by China. So while we were funded by the European Commission in our initial stages to build a kind of NSA-proof VPN, the NSA themselves are interested in defending their own people overseas, and they tried to build their own similar system under a DARPA project called RACE, which is a mixnet, but as is the case with most government-funded projects, I think no working software came out in the end.
Yeah.
So who is going to be your competition? Is it going to be the Cisco kit in corporate racks? Is it going to be the likes of Nord and Surfshark and ExpressVPN? Is it going to be Tor?
I quite like Tor, and I think that Tor's nonprofit use case complements ours. Obviously, for ours, you'll eventually have to pay. Tor will remain free forever, at least until Trump attacks their funding. And I'm not too concerned over other VPN companies because their products are mostly pretty terrible. So I think anyone who's interested in something better will just naturally come to us. I think our main problem is the speed issue, where it is slower. And I think Chelsea has a lot of good ideas about how to increase the speed of these things.
Sure. Yeah, so one of the things that we want to do is across the network, because it's a decentralized network, so we're going to create the standard for hardware acceleration of the network. So that way, packets, as they're transferring across the network, the computation that's done can be done a lot faster, but it also sets the stage for us later to sort of think about like how we can do secure enclaves and hardware and entirely hardware secure environments, to where you essentially have something that you can't really hack or interfere with because it's built into the chip itself. So it's more of like thinking ahead like 10 years, but if we are successful and we're able to fund this venture, we should be able to develop the most secure consumer level tool that's ever been conceived of.
And Chelsea really has a very impressive game plan, because I think the problem with existing VPNs is that they basically say, trust us, we're not going to log or copy your data. But actually they can. You just have to trust them.
Yeah.
And independent audits can easily be faked or are not particularly trustworthy of themselves. We fight that by saying, we're a decentralized network, so it's unlikely everyone is logging you. But in order to really solve that problem, you do need secure enclaves that prevents the logging, the copying of the user data.
Yeah, so not even we can go in unless we have a microscope when we turn it off.
And then the second thing is that right now you have to choose between privacy and speed, but we would like everyone to be anonymous and totally private by default.
By default, yeah.
And that to be the same speed as a normal VPN. But in order to do that, we do need extra funding and extra work to build these fast chips.
Also users. We need the users. The more users there are, the faster the network gets.
And in the final minute or so, where do you see this all going in the next 5 years? You talked about things happening in the next 10-year plan and your 10-year plan. Where are we going with VPN industry?
I don't know. It really depends on the geopolitical situations, how the supply chains work out, how connected the internet still stays. NIM as a tool will exist and as code, and it will continue to exist for a very long time, even if the venture itself is compromised in some way. So we've developed something that will last. But I think the biggest concern with this in the future is how bad the splinter net develops over the next 5 years, because every state seems to be ready to lock down the internet.
I mean, what do you think about Trump in the splinter net? Do you think he's going to splinter the United States off?
Well, I think he's catering to the crypto crowd at the moment, and they don't have an interest in that. But there's also the sort of culture war and the sort of political the sort of progressive, the anti-progressive politics with reactionary politics within the United States. And I think that they will make good on some things, like banning pornography, like banning access to queer and trans, rights information, etc.
It's going to be an interesting thing to watch.
Yeah.
We're out of time. Thank you so much, Harry. Thank you, Chelsea.